Thank you for joining us. I'm Toke Eid, the director of the Keynes Fund in Cambridge, and my guest today is Dr. Johannes Lenhard. We're here to talk about your new Keynes Fund project, ESG Debottling, how moving to ESG for venture capitalist investors impacts skyrocketing valuations. What is your research question?
So for this research project, we looked at ESG debubbling, which is a term that we invented in order to describe what's been happening in the VC industry. So these investors that fund startup companies like Facebook and Google 15 years ago. They've been having a great time for the last decade. Lots of money flying into the industry, mostly driven a lot by low interest rates, building a tech bubble. And that has recently, in the last 12 months, collapsed with the impact of rising interest rates, COVID, various different macro factors. So we looked at in qualitative interviews how that tech bubble collapsing implicates itself in the investment decision-making of venture capital investors.
What are you looking at that hasn't been addressed before?
So interestingly, despite these venture capital investors being so influential, there isn't an awful lot of research being done on them. Yes, there are some quantitative scholars who've looked at the effect they have on employment or innovation spending, R&D spending, because this is ultimately publicly available information, but they are not very keen on speaking with people. Having worked in the industry, had enough of enough contact to start conversations, and I've now had access to about 250 decision makers between Silicon Valley, London, Berlin, and New York. People that were willing to chat. So the first point, and what is new about this, is we have an enormously rich qualitative data set that we extended now with a specific focus on the unicorn bubble. Then secondly, what we're also looking at more specifically is ESG, environmental social governance principles. They've been integrated in the public markets decision-making of financial investors for a while, almost 10 years now. There's rating agencies, it's probably institutionalized. But ESG has only arrived in the venture capital industry about 18 months ago. That is one of the factors that we talk to these people about most. And I think we're so far, even at the practical forefront of the implementation of this, that I think there's nobody else who's been looking at this recently. And we're very happy that we've got some good data that we're currently writing up.
What wider social issues do your research address?
So thinking about these venture capital investors ultimately means thinking about people who make our economic presence and future. I mentioned the VCs that I speak with are the first money in companies that we now all live with. If you look at your phone and the different applications that are on your phone, almost every single one of those will have gone through the hands of and will have been signed off by and financed by venture capital investors. And that ranges from apps that you use on a day-to-day basis, like transportation apps, Uber, food delivery apps like Deliveroo, and much, almost infrastructural, technical infrastructure that you're using like Google, Amazon, Facebook. These were all venture capital funded. So understanding how these people work is enormously important in order to understand how our economy currently has been made and how the economy in 10 years is being made right now. Slightly more specifically, when it comes to environmental and societal impacts, what we're thinking through is these ESG, environmental social governance principles, and how they're starting to slowly influence venture capital investors. That has a very specific twist when it comes to the impacts these investors have. But overall, these are enormously powerful, mostly white men with Stanford and Harvard degrees. And we need to figure out what they do in order to, in a second step, possibly influence them to do stuff slightly differently.
One of the objectives of the Keynes Fund is to strengthen the research base in Cambridge and help younger researchers establish themselves. How do your project do that?
Firstly, I guess I'm a younger researcher myself. I'm not a member of any faculty, neither in anthropology nor economics. So in that sense, it helped me do a research project that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. But I was very lucky to work with a phenomenal research assistant who has really become not just a research assistant, but somebody who I'm now going to write this paper with, Alex Schapwald. And we've done most of the interviews together. We've done lots of the different research pieces together, read books together. So I think he learned for the first time how interviews work properly. He got a big insight into the venture capital industry. And in a sense, it was a lot of fun to work together and also teach a little bit in the process of doing the research of what the next generation hopefully can accomplish when it comes to specifically applying qualitative research to these economic issues.